part 4 is maybe the scariest part. This is where they change CSIS. Now, by the way, there's also Bill C-44, which is still before the Senate, which takes the first part of CSIS's mission and changes it. Under C-44, which is an anti-terrorism piece of legislation they brought in at the end of 2014, CSIS can operate internationally. So that's a big step. Under C-51, CSIS, now operating both domestically and internationally, is no longer restricted to collecting information, collecting intelligence, doing intelligence work. It now has a mandate to go out there and obstruct and reduce the threats by any means. So CSIS becomes a secret police force in Canada and around the world, empowered to do, well, the only restrictions on what CSIS is allowed to do, CSIS agents under this bill are specifically not allowed to cause bodily harm or death. I think that's good news. They're also not allowed to knowingly pervert the course of justice, but accidentally. What? The third thing they're not allowed to do, quote unquote, is violate the sexual integrity of any person. Well, that's a relief, because otherwise they probably would have thought they could do that. So CSIS agents are given this strange mandate to go out there and reduce the threat, and the only time they have to go to a judge is if the CSIS agents have decided for themselves that they're about to violate the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, or they're about to break a domestic law. Then they have to go to a judge. Now, there's nothing like this in any history of jurisprudence, not only in Canada, in any country I can think of, that says if you think you're about to violate the Constitution, go to a judge and get permission. The experts who testified yesterday before the House, Professor Craig 4SECRET at University of Ottawa, said, this is the constitutional breach warrant. We have never had anything like this in the history of Canada or any other country. And they said, talking to our Five Eyes partner, which is the security term for the ones we share information with, which is the US, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, none of them have anything like this either. They also have far greater oversight than we do. They have reports on what happens with a warrant. They report on what their spies are doing. This particular formulation is why this bill will not, this is the most important thing to share when you're talking to people who say, well, we've got to do something about terrorism. Right. This bill will not make us safer. This bill will make the existing investigation of terrorist plots far harder, and will thwart, very likely thwart prosecutions, because CSIS agents are given the power to go out and grant immunity to people they want to come work with them. So imagine the RCMP is trying to get a witness. CSIS offers them immunity. CSIS has no obligation to tell the RCMP what it's doing. I just can see the day. I mean, given that our history, again, Conrad Black is channeling through me, has examples of police acting in ways that are unfathomably stupid, we could have CSIS agents infiltrating a group while the RCMP is that group. They could be spying on each other. There's no way under this legislation that they will know what each other is doing. And it actually is going to make us less safe. The Air India inquiry was really clear on this point. RCMP had tapes about some of the people who actually put the bomb on that plane back in 1984, the Air India plane, which is the single biggest terrorist event in Canadian history. 390 people died, most of them Canadian. The fake baggage handlers who put the bomb on the plane that left Montreal, the plot was hatched in Vancouver. Various elements of our security forces all knew that they were planning something, but they didn't share the information with each other. So the number one recommendation of the Air India inquiry was, don't let this happen again. Make sure that intelligence services and the police report to each other what they're doing. No hoarding information, no thinking we're smarter than the RCMP and the RCMP thinking those CSIS guys don't know what they're doing. This is a formula for disaster. So it's not just that it impedes our civil liberties, it's not just that it tramples on our rights, it's not just that it's going to empower them to go out and track as if they already aren't. We know they're already infiltrating and tracking Idle No More and environmental groups and First Nations organizations. We know that. Which is why, by the way, if any of you are activists and are involved with groups, if you ever have anyone in your group who suggests doing something violent, take a picture of them and never allow them in the room again. Tell them you know they're with the RCMP or CSIS and you don't want them in the room anymore. Because otherwise, you're going to get, yeah. So nonviolence is the only way to handle this kind of pervasive threat of intrusion and infiltration. Nonviolence is the only way in any case. I mean, that's pretty clear. The best protest movements ever organized, from Gandhi to Martin Luther King, said we stand on nonviolence. That's how we get things done. That's how we prick the conscience of the people who aren't paying attention. And certainly the Green Party is founded in 6 core principles, and one of them is creating a culture of nonviolence and peace. So this whole thing, it's important for people to know, because I don't think there's a chance that as we organize pipeline protests, whether it's Energy East or Enbridge or Kinder Morgan, that we are not already having surveillance. We already have the report of the RCMP that was released, which Perry Bellegarde, the National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, tabled with the Public Safety Committee yesterday, that said there are, you've probably heard of this report, that said there are anti-petroleum ideologues out there. That's RCMP language. Anti-petroleum ideologues who claim, what a claim, that burning fossil fuels causes climate change. The RCMP find this group to be a threat to the security of Canada because our economy depends on petroleum. So therefore, these people who claim this, I asked in the House of Commons if the Minister for Public Safety, Stephen Blaney, based on this report, wouldn't agree that it was important to have science training for our CMP officers so they would understand the threat of climate change and not fall into ignorance as they had in this report. Unfortunately, Stephen Blaney didn't answer the question, and neither did the Minister of Environment, who popped up to read the usual talking point about the sector-by-sector approach of the Canadian government in reducing greenhouse gases.